just for the recording. I'm sorry, you guys, you've heard this now 3 times. I feel so badly. My name is Patty Collinsworth, and I am a Premier Elite Certified Teacher. The 3rd time's a charm. I knew the minute I said that we were going to get in trouble. I have been working in my records and teaching for over a decade, and I found the Pathway Prayer Process and Linda after a long journey of what I call a spiritual quest. I'd struggled with depression most of my life and was looking for a way to feel better. And after many classes and many years of traditional therapy, found Linda through my studies and found the Pathway Prayer Process. And I'm very fond of saying to people that my life, right, looks exactly the same. The people in it, the way I am, the things I do, but my relationship to those things has been transformed through my work in the record. I've come to understand who I am, why I am the way I am, and have really embraced it in a very powerful way rather than being against myself. I'm with myself now. And that is directly a result of my work in the records. So the way I like to do these talks is to tell you a little bit about the Akasha and then to dive in more specifically about the Pathway Prayer Process. So you guys understand if you do decide to pursue some training, which I hope you do, I really encourage you to do that. You'll know what to expect and what you'll take from the classes if you go through the program. When we talk about the records, we're talking about a soul level dimension of consciousness. It's something that's always around us. We can't see it. Most of us can't see it, but we know it's there, right? We feel this thing that animates us and we feel connected to each other. And the records is, Linda says in her book and in her classes, it's like dreaming. We know it happens. We can't touch it. It's not physical, but we remember our dreams. We know that they happen. So that's a vibrational quality that is always around us, this soul level dimension of consciousness. And it used to be that only mystics, people who were in mystery school stages knew about the records. But in our time in 2022, one of the things that Linda's responsible for is making this available to ordinary people. And she's given us a prayer. So the way that we access the records is through a sacred prayer, which is a sacred prayer tradition. There are lots of ways now. Since Linda's published her book, there are many ways to get into the records, which is really fantastic and fabulous. I teach this modality because it works. It is foolproof in my estimation. I've never had anybody who couldn't do it. It's reliable, it's dependable. And it's just a really solid way in order to communicate and talk with your soul, right? This divine part of you. So let's see. A lot of times when people come to classes, they also have this idea that the Akasha is outside of them, right? It's like this thing that's really big. And that's true, but the real power is the connection you make inside. So when you access the records, you're actually talking to this inside soul part of you that is connected to everything else. So the Pathway Prayer Process gives you a personal experience, a personal connection to the Akasha, which is where this idea of transformation occurs. As I connect more intimately with the light that's inside of me, with my soul, and I begin to communicate and really have a sense of what life looks like through that lens, it transforms who I am and transforms my perspective about what I'm doing. Soul purposes is a very popular idea these days, but it is very powerful actually when you begin to appreciate and align with the things that are really calling to be pulled out of you and out in the world. And the Pathway Prayer Process is a way in which you can discover those things. Some of the benefits, people talk about a greater sense of peace, acceptance around their life, right? Instead of trying to change things, it's more like I'm aligning with them. It's easy to use. Pathway prayer process is very easy to use. It's easy to learn how to use it. Good. So the way that the classes are set up is really, really foundational and supportive to growing your expertise in the records. The first class is the beginner practitioner class, and this is the nuts and bolts. So you learn how to read your records, you learn how to read the records of another person, learn how to read the records of something other than a person, so a pet, a business, piece of property. In that class, you go through the elements of the prayer. You have a chance to learn who your masters, teachers, and loved ones are, which are your guides in the records. They're very particular to the records. So it's a really nice way to ease into a practice, to have support, to learn the basics, and to practice. Practice is really important to this particular modality. The more you practice, the easier it is. The more intimate you become with your own records and understanding your relationship with your soul. And so that class really sets you up in a nice way. It's followed by the advanced practitioner class, which gets in more deeply to the elements of the reading, like past lives, the ancestral patterns and influences, and the structure of the reading, which follows a particular path, right? And how you move through getting your questions answered or understanding whatever your inquiry is more deeply from your soul's perspective. Following those two classes are more advanced classes. These are all based on Linda's book. The first two classes that I mentioned are based on her first book, How to Read the Akashic Records. And then the classes that follow after that, there's Healing Through the Akashic Records, which is commonly called the Blue Book, because in the United States it has a blue jacket. There's Soul's Path, and then more recently there's Soul's Purposes. So those are the classes in the curriculum that are set up for certification. Okay, so you guys tell me, that was a really, really fast introduction, but I want to make sure to keep us on time and give you guys a chance to ask questions. Who has questions? What can I help you guys with? And Ryan, if I missed anything, just tell me.
No, not from my end. You want me to, I can share some of the specific class links a little bit later.
That would be great. Yeah, that would be awesome. Linda's, she's got an online teaching platform called Learn It Live, where teachers are hosting classes, including Linda herself. And Ryan can share the links. It's on our website as well. There are nice descriptions there. You can see the different teachers that are teaching. There's flexible schedules. So it's really adaptable to whatever it is you need. And the classes are recorded. So if you cannot make the class, you can watch it and work through the material at a later date. You can also go back and watch them again, which is really nice.
I do see Audra's
yeah,
got her hand raised, and then there's a couple.
Yeah, Audra, what's up? Tell me.
I just wanted to know, if we do read all of the books, how does the class aid in helping understand the books more, or does it, like, how does it complement it?
That's a wonderful question. You can, in theory, you can learn how to read your records by reading the book. And that was the intention of the book. Linda knew not everybody was going to be able to come to a class. And she wanted people to have access to their records. What I'll tell you, having taught this, is people who read the book, when they come for a class, they have the benefit of a teacher who has been in and out of the records, right? And so there's something energetically about following somebody in who's been in a lot. It makes it easier. Linda talks about this energy backing. So you have the backing of all the students that are there with you. I think the other benefit of class is you get to ask questions. And some of this stuff is intuitive, it makes sense. Linda's book is very clear, but some stuff's not. And so you can come to the class and you can say, look, I've been practicing and this is happening, or this is happening. Is that right? Or I have this particular question about this thing. A lot of times students who are first accessing the records will say, I don't know that I'm in the records. And that's, again, a benefit of the class, is that I can help you distinguish between, are you in, are you not? Is there something that maybe is still needing clarification, that wasn't like you read the book, but when you went to practice it, you interpreted it a different way? So those are some, Audra, some of the benefits I think of the class. The fundamental benefit in my mind is the practice. You're practicing with a group of people, you get in more deeply and you go faster if you come to a class. I just see people speed up their work in the records having taken a class. I hope that helps. That's a really great question though.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then it looks like Andrea has in the chat, how long are the classes, or what's the duration of the courses?
A great question as well. So the way that the classes are structured on Learn It Live is dependent on the teacher. So the classes are really arranged around curriculum. And some classes are taught weekly. Like I teach weekly, and I'll teach the beginner class. I think it's three or four sessions for 2 to 3 hours in an evening in the US. Other teachers will teach it over a weekend. So like a Friday night in the US all the way through a Saturday. Some teachers teach it like a Saturday and a Saturday. It depends on the schedules, but I want to say the beginner class is like 9 hours in total. And there's also homework too, depending on which format you use. And the idea with homework is that it just makes it, it's really helpful because it helps you, again, practice, get clear about what the records isn't. There's so many modalities out there right now. And when students come who've been trained in other things, being able to practice a couple of times centering in what the records is versus more psychic or mediumship type techniques, which is really outside pulling in. The records is inside going out. And so the homework assists with that. Homework's usually something that takes about 30 minutes outside of class. And there are a couple of homework assignments if you do it at a pace weekly. The more advanced classes, so the healing through the Akashic Records, Soul's Path, and Soul's Purposes, those are multi-weekend and or 4 to 5 sessions, longer sessions, because there's just more material in them. But this is where you can go to the links that Ryan's providing you, and you can see the different options there and what fits best with your schedule and you know, what makes sense for you. If you want to do it all at once, sometimes people just like to stick with it and go through it all at once versus doing it weekly. Sometimes people really like having a break in between the classes. So it's what's best for you. And it's nice because there are a couple of teachers that are teaching different schedules right now.
Thank you, Patty. And then
Yeah.
Roberta in the chat has, is it self-paced? And I'm actually not, is she not with us anymore? Looks like she's not. But so is it self-paced, which I think we spoke a little to, and I'm not sure what the VE sessions question is.
Yeah, so if it can be self-paced in that, for instance, if you take a class with me, you do not have to come to the live class, right? But you will have homework. So until you've submitted your homework, I won't give you a certification, but you can take your time with that. The benefit of trying to come to the live classes, especially with the beginner class, is that you can ask questions. You get to hear what other people are asking, and usually other people are asking the same questions you have. So there's, you get to learn from other people. The classes that run over a weekend, I believe those classes you do have to attend live, but you can read the description online to find that out. And I would say you would want to go to them live. You don't want to you don't want to sign up for a weekend class and not join it. If you're not free that weekend, I would wait to take it another time when you can come. They are recorded, so you can go back and listen to them. But I believe one of the requirements for those weekend classes is that you attend, because it's a short period of time. Good. What else, you guys?
Well, maybe while they're thinking, I'll just mention, so I'm putting a couple links in the chat. And they might be a little mixed with the questions here. But so the first one I linked, as Patty mentioned, there's an order to the classes. So the first one here is just all the upcoming beginner classes, which is of course a great place to start. And then I did put the upcoming classes that Patty specifically is teaching. And I just want to make sure it's correct. It looks like you don't have any beginner classes coming up right now, Patty, right?
I do not.
But so those are available as well. And there's some stuff in there too, right? That's kind of outside of the class structure as well.
Exactly.
And then this
Linda's
last one, go ahead.
Yeah, Linda's been teaching some shorter format classes that are really interesting. I encourage you guys to check those out. They're not certification classes, they're not how-to classes, but she's taking some piece of the work and diving in deeply. And she's got some interesting, timely topics as well. Sorry, Ryan, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No worries. And then the last one here is just all of the upcoming classes that are being taught by the certified teachers.
I was just looking at the questions. Somebody had asked about using this in coaching. And I've had a number of students come through, Michelle actually had a number of students come through who do use it for this exactly. It pairs really, really nicely with coaching. I've had a couple of psychotherapists actually take the class and use it with their clients. It's not psychic, you guys. So it's not like you're predicting anything. It's more about this deeper understanding. And what happens with the records is that you end up uncovering things that feel real to you. It's never anything that feels outside of you. It always feels authentic, but it may not be something that's in your everyday frame of reference, because what the records does is it lets you understand this larger divine perspective on your life and on life, right? And that's not something we always have access to. People get very interested in past lives, and that's in the record, but it's just a piece of that actual story. And so, for me personally, there were a lot of things about my life that didn't make sense, and they felt like mistakes. It's real interesting. As I did the work in the records, it became very clear why they were in my life and that they weren't mistakes. And so I could align to them differently. But that's not something I ever got from psychotherapy. And it's not something I ever got from any sort of counseling that I had been engaged in. And I did a lot of that. It came from this perspective of my soul. So I think it's a really powerful tool for you guys that are doing anything like that. It complements it in a very, very profound and nice way. Now you have to have clients that are open to this, and you have to figure out a way to communicate that. But that's part of what practicing helps you with, and part of what I encourage students to do when they come through beginner classes, to practice and kind of figure out their story with it, outside of their day-to-day business, and then figure out how to fold it in. And it's easy to do. Once you can define the benefits for your clients, your audience, whoever you're talking with, it has a very organic way of meeting you, which I find really interesting. People, there are lots of readers now, but there's still plenty of people who want readings, because the people who are meant to work with you will find you. And it's really like that. Yeah. Good. What else, you guys?
I did just notice, I think Roberta had maybe got disconnected for a second. Do you want to just touch real briefly on that question one more time about the self-pacing component?
Yeah. So Roberta, is she back? Yeah, Roberta, right? She's back. Good.
Mhm.
Roberta. So you had asked about self-pacing. It really depends on the teacher and the class format. In the classes I teach, I break them up. So I do them over a month, and you really can self-pace those. That is not a problem at all. I give homework because I want you to have a practice to work on it it's really important to me. Let me back up. It's really important to me that after you take class, you use this practice. And one of the things I've found supportive to students is if I give them an exercise, a homework assignment, takes 20, 30 minutes that you do at home, it helps you transition from the classroom to home so that you feel comfortable once class is over. So as long as you get your homework done, whenever you get it done, I'll certify you, and you can come to the live class or not. It's up to you. The weekend classes, so some teachers teach this over a weekend. I believe you have to be live in those classes, because the idea with that is that you're crunched, the class is crunched into a specific time period, so it's easier for you to attend. But if you look at the requirements for each one of the descriptions, it will say that, depending on who's teaching it and how they're teaching it. Linda does have some on-demand versions of these classes. It's just that you don't get certification, I don't think, Ryan. I think that's part of the deal. Those are definitely self-paced. The drawback of that is you don't have a teacher or a mentor who can help you navigate your questions, which you will get in the certification classes. And I do think that Audra asked this question. I think there's a huge benefit to that. If you can, figure out your schedule and your budget, I think taking a live class, especially for the beginner class, is really, really helpful to your practice. I'll just tell you, having worked with lots of different students, worked with some students who read the book and practiced for a while on their own and then ended up in a class, and they have questions still that they couldn't get answered because they did a fine job, but it was just helpful to them to have that support of somebody who's trained, somebody who's worked with other students, who knows what these questions are, and can help you navigate that at the very beginning.
Yeah, excellent point, Patty. I do believe you can get certification in Linda's on demand, but you don't
Okay.
have the benefit of the live class, of the
The live
interaction
teacher.
and the live teacher.
And
then
she's
Michelle,
gone
sorry.
back and forth with that. So I always feel the details on these classes are very well documented. So you just want to read that, but that is an option. You can do the on demand if you want more of a self-paced.
And then
Oh,
Michelle
teachers in
is
the
asking.
UK.
Yeah.
I don't think there are any in the UK. There's somebody in Spain now, but I believe she's teaching in Spanish. I don't think there's anybody in the UK.
I believe that is correct. Yes. So maybe
Yeah.
you would be the first one, Michelle.
There you go. What else, you guys? Is anybody practicing right now? And if so, how's that going? The classes, the prices for the classes are listed on Learn It Live. So Ryan actually put the link up. It's a little bit above Audra where you just typed your question. And each class, the prices for each class varies because of the length of the class. And I forget the total price. I can look it up though. For the beginner class, I forget what it is. Let's see here. I think it's a couple $100. It's US dollars for you guys that are not in the US. Let's see.
I think 360 for the beginner.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, there you go. That's right. And I was trying to see here if she requires, Amy teaches over the weekend.
Yeah, it definitely varies, right? It looks like
Yeah.
Looks like Kevin does like a Friday and then Saturday, Sunday, I think.
Right. Yeah. Great. So the beginner class is $360. It's US dollars. Yes, Audra, I highly recommend you read the book before coming to class. The book itself, you guys, I've read that beginner book 100 times. I still read it. Every time I read it, there's something that I absorb or learn that I didn't see before. It's a very organic practice. So it's like these layers. I say it's like peeling an onion back. The first experience, you can ask the same question in your record 10 times and get 10 different answers, because as you transform and change, more gets revealed or there's different understanding. And the books really have a lot of good information in them. And then you come to a class and you hear it a different way. You also practice in a different way. But the books are fantastic, very foundational. Highly recommend you get them and read them more than once. In fact, you can. The beginner class, in fact, is really easy to get through. It's not dense. It's long, but it's not dense. Like you can read it and understand it. And there's some pages that you'd want to go back and read again, but mostly you can get through it in a day, pretty much. Good. And Ryan, thank you for putting up the link for the book.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, just to confirm, right? It's the first two levels, the beginner and advanced practitioner, are based on the first book, right?
Exactly. The beginner class is about half of the first book, so you get halfway through. The advanced practitioner starts with energy healing, which is the process for a more in-depth reading. Once you learn how to get in and out, Linda has this very nice protocol for how you conduct a reading, which is in the energy healing chapter. Then there's a chapter on ancestral patterns and a chapter on past lives, and that's advanced practitioner. Exactly. Okay. What is the difference between accessing the record? That's a great question. So what's the difference between accessing the record and accessing the soul heart center for answers? So the record, the Akasha, again, when you're talking about what's inside of you versus what's around us, that is your soul. Your soul actually has different energy layers. So there are some people that are really scientific that can describe these different parts of the soul. But in Linda's practice, one of the things that she describes is as a result of reading the record, you're actually anchoring down into your heart center. And then connecting back up to the soul chakra, which is the 8th chakra up here. And then it sort of makes this matrix out into ordinary life, right? This is your energy body all around you. So I would say, Roberta, if I were going to answer that question, if you were working with a pathway prayer process, you are actually accessing the heart of the records, right? Because of the orientation, the vibrational quality of the words of the prayer, or what transition you into this perspective. We talked a little bit about that at the beginning, right? We can't touch and feel it, but you can feel the shift. You can sense something inside of you as you read the prayer, and it's anchored in your heart, which is actually one of the benefits of this practice. Healing occurs as you do this work, because the energy body, it's funny to say this, it has blocks in it. Even though it's energy, it can get stagnant and or calcified. And as you do the work, you're pulling down this soul perspective and magnifying it in your energy body in the lower chakras that are more personal to you and more part of the physical. It can move these things and change them. And so there's this healing that occurs, and it is very much around compassion, openness, which to me are qualities of the heart. But lingo, there's all kinds of interesting descriptions and words for the soul and soul heart. And so I would also say to you, like, make sure you're looking at those definitions, right? And whatever piece of material you're pulling that description from. Linda talks about the heart of the records because this prayer is actually anchoring you in the heart as the conduit for the way in which you interact with the records. Edgar Casey, who also has written many, many books about the records, when he was alive, did readings. And in my estimation, he was actually connecting with his third eye into the record. So he did not remember anything. He actually had somebody transcribing it. He was not transformed by his experience. It was a lot of information, right? Versus the pathway prayer process, where you can actually feel these shifts occurring, and feel, right? Like the shift that I experienced in my life was just a more openness to who I was, which came from a compassion towards myself and my journey, which was really centered in the heart. We have a couple more minutes, you guys. Does anybody else have any other questions? Yeah. Oh, nice, Roberta. I say take the classes, you guys. They're really great. Work in your records. I mean this. You can do so many interesting things. I am inspired, amazed when people come through my classes and where they go in their lives. And sometimes it's just about having a resource for yourself where you can go in and say, how come this thing keeps happening to me? You know, what is this about? I have to say, I don't know why, but my path involved many, many, many psychic readings. And, you know, I had lots of really good psychics actually tell me things that would happen in my life. None of them satisfied the way my work in the records did. And so I encourage you guys, get the book. You can come to a class, because it's a really powerful way to navigate life and to understand what's up for you and what's going on. And it helps you make better choices, right? Aligned with what's inside of you, which I think is important. All right. One last call.
I'll ask one question, which I wouldn't be surprised if anyone else is thinking about. Can you just say a little bit how this practice particularly can and does relate to other practices people might already have?
Yeah. It's a great question. And it's kind of, it fits nicely with the coaching question that somebody asked. So I have, again, I use I think back to people I've trained and taught. I'm from the Boston area where their mediumship is very popular here. And I've taught many practicing mediums. So that's what they do for a living, to get in and out of the records and to actually give readings for other people. And I'll tell you that it's kind of nice, I think, if you're going to be working with clientele and reading people, to be able to offer different things, because sometimes people, they want to talk to a loved one who's passed on, which the records is not good for. Sometimes people really need something predictive, like they're trying to figure out, right, if they should move or not, and they just want to know, am I going to sell my house, right? But other times people are asking these bigger questions that are not answered nicely or neatly by a loved one, or somebody who's predicting something, right? So patterns, for instance, why does this keep happening to me? So I'll have somebody come, not because they want to know when they're going to meet their soulmate. They're like, I've been in 5 relationships and they're all exactly the same. Help me understand what this is about. What's going on here? That's a records question, right? So if you have different kinds of questions from people and you've got these different tools, you're going to be better able to help them in the way that they need, versus this one thing that I do all the time. Now, I only do the record. So what I do is when somebody comes to me for a mediumship reading, I know the person I send them to, right? And I say, look, please go. That works for me because I'm a teacher and I'm really invested in this practice. I think it's hugely helpful if you are doing other things. It's one of the things I believe complements almost any practice the best, actually. And I took a lot of these classes, you guys, and am trained to do a lot of things. I'm trained to teach other things. But this was the thing that really resonated with me because it answered these questions that other modalities hadn't been able to. But there's no, substitute. If somebody wants to talk to their mother who's died, you need a medium, right? And I think that's really exciting that we have all these tools. I think it's really cool. I was going to say one other thing about questions. I forgot what it was. The one thing I will say, Ryan, that's a really great question. The one thing I will say about it as a practitioner is you want to know what's going to help your clients. So some things are really clear, but don't be a victim of your practice, right? Like if somebody's asking you for something, then know which thing is going to help them the best. But there's lots of ways to do this. Even people who practice Reiki, which there are no real questions with that. I often say to them, get the records open before you work with the client. Ask about, what does this person need? How can I best help them? You close the records and do the Reiki session. Like it's a nice way to look at the person, to look at their journey. When you open the records of another person, you really get to know who they are. You have a sense. It just gets sort of downloaded about what makes them tick, right? And that's helpful if you're going to be doing some sort of healing with them. How do they process stuff? How are they in the world, right? So you can get to know a person through their soul, which I think is really cool. Yeah. Those tough questions, though, that's the best thing that it does. It's like the questions that nobody else. I get this from people. I've asked 5 other people this question and nobody's been able to answer it for me, right? And the records can often get at that, which is helpful if somebody's really stuck.
Well, I know we're right at time. Maybe if you think, Patty, there's a short answer to Roberta had one more question in the chat.
So this question about the higher self versus the record. The higher self is a little different than the soul. But it's ever so slight, Roberta. And so what I would say to you is the best advice I can give you is to take that question, right, and answer it from the higher self, and then take it into their records and compare the answers. Higher self, for instance, doesn't know a lot about past lives. Higher self doesn't really care about the soul group. It can be more aligned with intuition. It can be more aligned with, what the ego is actually navigating. And the ego is fine. The ego is good. We like the ego. The ego is not the soul, right? So the soul is your connection to the divine. It includes your journey through time and space, and it includes those unique qualities that you possess. You combine all those things together, and that's what gives you the answer or the perspective on whatever you're inquiring about, which is different than the higher self. And I hope that helps. It's a really good question. It's a very technical question. So I hope that helps you. But I would ask based on the quality, I would answer this question based on the quality of the response. That's how you're going to know the difference.